Hi all, we will start in about 2 minutes time just to allow everyone to join. Thanks. Hello and welcome to Microsoft Licensing. My name is Lars Heinelt and I am the Nordic OEM Category Manager at Microsoft. So today we're going to talk about Microsoft Licensing and how to license with Microsoft Licensing. If you have any questions, please fill in at the question form and I will answer them along the way. First of all, let's look at how we are able to purchase Microsoft licenses. We basically have three ways to purchase Microsoft licenses, either as an OEM, as a COEM, or as a volume license agreement. So if we look at the volume license agreement, which is the most expensive license, this is purchased directly from end customers straight to Microsoft, an agreement between those two, and it includes license mobility and downgrade rights. It is not pre-installed, it's not pre-tested, and it is not supported other than by Volume License Service Center from Microsoft. It is a digital license, and in order to achieve a volume license agreement, the end customer will have to have at least 5 licenses through volume license agreement. If we then look at the COEM license, or the license which end customers can purchase through partners, this is a box license which includes a meter and a key, so a product key. This is not pre-installed either. It is basically the second cheapest way to purchase a Microsoft license, and it is not supported either other than by the support you can purchase through your partner, the reseller. And it does not include downgrade rights or downgrade kit. Finally, we have the third license, which is the OEM license, or the ROK license, as we also call it. The ROK license, OEM license, is pre-installed, it's pre-tested, and it's optimized for the current hardware solution. It is the cheapest by far Microsoft license and cheapest way to purchase a Microsoft license. It is fully supported by the whole by the hardware vendor, and it is a one-stop solution. So basically, you can purchase all the licenses you can in a volume license agreement. You can also purchase those as an OEM license. The OEM license is tied to the hardware, so in its essence, it doesn't have license mobility. You can, however, purchase OEM licenses with reassignment rights, and you also have an option to purchase software assurance along with that, which I will get back to at a later stage. The Microsoft OEM license also have downgrade rights, and we're talking about downgrade rights, we're talking about downgrading to the prior two versions. So when we're talking 2019, Windows Server 2019, you are allowed to downgrade to 2016 version, and the Windows Server 2012, 12 are two versions. So benefits of purchasing an OEM license. So basically, being pre-tested and pre-optimized for the hardware, it is 86% times faster to deploy on a server. It takes 40 steps fewer to deploy on a server, and another big important thing for the end customer is that we have one point of contact, which would be the hardware vendor and their support. Looking at how we distribute the licenses. So basically, when an end customer purchases a ROK license through resellers and distributors, the ROK license arrives at the distributor from the M&A as what we call a soft bundle. So basically, the hardware and the software is not bundled yet. However, before arriving at the end customer, distributor and reseller has to install and pre-install this license on the server hardware so that it is pre-installed and pre-tested, right? Moving forward, when we look at Windows Server 2019 licensing, so basically, with the introduction of the Windows Server 2016 license, we also introduced core licensing. Prior, we used to have CPU licensing, but we moved into a core licensing model to basically establish a common currency, both for our on-prem servers, but also for the cloud solution. So now we are strictly core license, and as we're going to see in the next slides, we can see how we license those cores. If we look at the three different types of Microsoft licenses, we have the Essential Edition, we have the Standard Edition, and we have the Data Center Edition. So each edition has some limitations and some features that are important for our end customers to be aware. So basically, if we look at the Essential Edition, it is licensed and by counting the users or the devices that are attached to the server configuration. It has to be the root of the domain, and therefore cannot participate in a cluster setup. Looking at the Standard Edition, the number of users and devices are unlimited, and they are counted instead as CALs. So you will have to purchase for both Standard Edition and Data Center Editions the CALs, client access licenses for each user or device that have access. That is not the case with Essential, where you don't need CALs. Standard Edition can be root or a member of cluster. So there are like no domain limitations in that set. With Standard Editions and with Data Center Editions, that is the same as an count of the user limitations. They're unlimited. Also, if we look at different other features, which is really important right here, we're looking at we're looking at hyperconverged infrastructure and software-defined networking, which is only part of the data center edition. And also, we need to look at the virtual machine. So once you have a need to run virtual machines in your environment, server environment, you will have to move from Essential Edition and at least to Standard or Standard Edition. Now, with Standard Edition, as we can see, going to the next slide, with the Standard Edition, we are entitled to have 2 virtual machines per license. With the Data Center Edition, we have unlimited virtual machines at our disposal. So that is another big feature. So going forth, whenever we have customers that are looking to purchase a Microsoft operating system, we need to ask them in regards to the key points of this being root domain or part of a cluster. Is this countable on users' devices, or do you want unlimited user devices? And are you going to virtualize your environment? So basically, are you going to run VMs? And in that case, how many VMs? We're going to get back to that as well. Now, looking at the Windows Server 2019 licensing, as said before, it is as with the Windows Server 2016 license, a core license. So all main licenses, Standard Edition and Data Center Edition, will come as 16 core licenses. And the reason for this is that we have to follow 3 rules from Microsoft licensing point of view. So basically, to be compliant, all physical cores in the server needs to be licensed, and a minimum of 8 cores per processor. So in this case, we're on the left where we have 32 cores in the physical server. All 32 cores need to be licensed, which means we need to purchase 32 core licenses from Microsoft. And we have the same here shown once more. Basically, the 3 rules that minimum 8 cores per processor, minimum 16 cores per server, and all cores need to be licensed. Let's go back to this one. So if we take some examples in this, because this is where most faults are made when licensing servers. We have the 16 core license as a base license, and then we also have 4 core and 2 core additional licenses. And as a standard, the licenses are the same price no matter if you purchase 1 16 core license or 8 2 core licenses or 4 core licenses. So same price per core. And if you look at different types of scenarios, if you have a server with 1 processor, you need to license still 16 core license. We have 1 exception to the rule at some time, but in general, this is the 16 core license. So we need to 16 as a minimum license 16 cores. So if we on the left example on the left, we have 20 cores, we would have 20 cores. So we would have 2 cores, for instance, with 2 processors with 10 cores each. Then that would be a total of 20 cores, and we would therefore have to license with 1 16 core license and 1 4 core additional license. If we had 24 cores in total, then we would have to have 16 core license and 2 4 core licenses. If we try to calculate in regards to virtual machine, so whenever customers purchase a license, a standard license, they will receive the opportunity to have 2 virtual machines. So 2 virtual machines per standard license, right? So if a customer has, as we see in this example, where we have 24, we have like 12 cores in each CPU, meaning we have 24 cores. Then we would have to license that with, of course, a 16-core license and additional licenses, core licenses. But in the scenario where the customer only needs 2 virtual machines, that is fine. But whenever the customer needs to purchase 2 or more virtual machines, they will have to license all the cores again. So in the case where customer needs to run 4 virtual machines, they would therefore need 2 standard licenses, and they would therefore need to license all 24 cores twice with standard licensing. If they had purchased a data center license, the virtual machines would be unlimited, and they would therefore not have to license more than 1 data center license to have more virtual machines. Shifting now and talking a little bit about client access licenses. We talked about in regards to the essential license, the essential version, we didn't need CALs, but for standard and data center licenses, we do need CALs. So let me see. Oh. Right. So the first rule for CAL licensing is that all customers need to purchase server CALs for their user and device. All users and devices in a server setup infrastructure environment needs to be licensed with client access licenses in order to be compliant with Microsoft rules. So the client access licenses are not delivered with a product key, and therefore do not need to be installed. They're basically delivered as a compliance solution. So they will figure on an invoice, and that is all. They don't need to be registered in that sense. Also, CALs are version specific, and that means that they are purchased with the latest version of Windows Server, but they are also corresponding to the previous versions of Windows Server. So basically, if you're purchasing a Windows Server 2019 license, CAL license, that would also cover if you're running Windows Server 2016, 2012, or older versions in your server environment. However, if you already purchased Windows Server 20, Windows Server client access licenses, Windows Server CALs to previous versions, where you bought it like you had from your old setup with running Windows Server 2012, and now you're purchasing Windows Server 2019, you would have to relicense all users and devices with Windows Server 2019 CALs. So running Windows Server 2019, you cannot be compliant if you have older Windows Server CALs on that. So you need to relicense all your CALs, all your users and devices. So there are 3 types of CALs, 3 types of client access licenses. So the first one is user CALs. So basically, user CALs are access licenses for a single user with an unlimited amount of devices, which would basically most people in a modern company. They have their desktops at the office, they have their laptops at home, they have their mobile running company applications, etc. So they would have to have a user CAL. Device CALs is the opposite. where you have one device with multiple users. It could be a desktop at a reception with several receptionists tapping in. It could be a library with several users on a search engine at the library. And then we have the remote desktop CALs, which is for remote desktop access, and they need to be paired with either a device or user CAL. So they're not a standalone CAL, but needs to also be licensed with device and user CALs. Then we have the software assurance. So software assurance is an upgrade Microsoft product that basically helps you to give you an additional amount of features on your license. So basically, most often we buy software assurance to give new versions, right? So whenever we know that a new version of Windows Server is arriving, we can purchase the software assurance and thereby getting free access to an upgrade to the new server version. It also gives license mobility and reassignment rights to OEM licenses. So basically, when you purchase the software assurance, you get reassignment rights with every 90 days, as we have with the VoIP license, which means that you can basically move one server to another with every 90 days. You also get technical training, so you have an access to get technical training directly from Microsoft. The software assurance needs to be purchased within 90 days of purchasing your Microsoft OEM license. And it's also only sold as the latest version of the Windows Server edition. The software assurance is a 2-year license, so it needs to be renewed every 2 years and at latest 90 days after the passing of the 2-year term. We also have an opportunity to purchase SQL Server. So basically SQL Server being the database operating system. And this is something that is often many questions surrounding how do we license SQL servers. So basically there are two types of SQL Server licenses. The first one is the SQL Server plus CALs, and the second one is the core-based license. So the SQL Server plus CALs is basically a license we will purchase whenever we have an easily counted user devices that are attached to the SQL Server. If we have a larger amount of user devices, we would shift to the core-based license. With the SQL Server Plus CAL license, all users and devices must be licensed with a SQL Server CAL client access license, and those CALs need to be registered within the system. With the core-based licensing, we don't need to purchase CALs. However, we need to either license all the physical cores or license the virtual machines, whichever is cost the cheapest or works well. So that is the difference that we need to really underline, that if you have a big and substantial amount of cores and you're basically only running SQL on 4 virtual machines, it is easier to only license the virtual machines. You don't have to license all the physical cores. However, if you're running it on the physical cores, then you will need to license all the physical cores in that server. SQL Server CALs, SQL Server licenses come as a core-based in a 4-core standard base license and as 2-core additional licenses. We also have an opportunity to attach secondary Microsoft OS licenses to, for instance, a VMware solution. So basically, when we're running a VMware hypervisor, VMware solution setup, we have an opportunity to have to attach an OEM Windows Server data center guest OS to that. Basically all server, even though it is a VMware solution, will run some kind of Microsoft operating, so like Microsoft workloads. So therefore, they would need Microsoft operating system. And because the OEM license, ROK license, is the cheapest by far to purchase, and it is pre-installed and pre-tested and optimized for this particular solution, this is by far the cheapest solution for end customers and what is preferred by most everyone. So, and it will also help in the sense that they will have the whole solution as a complete solution supported by the hardware vendor. So that is also something to stress. So with that, I think we have concluded the Microsoft license. You're very welcome to put in questions. I just want to remind everyone, of course, that just to recap, that we have when licensing with Microsoft licenses, we need to have all the three rules, which is that all cores in a server needs to be licensed, all cores in a CPU needs to be licensed, and a minimum of 8 cores per CPU. So that is why we have the 16 core base license that we also need to always need to start out with, and then we can add additional cores from that. And as a final remark, I just want to remind everyone as well that we right now is pushing the message again and again in regards to our Windows Server 2008 being end of support as the 14th of January this year, the meaning that all end customers running Windows Server 2008 or older versions in their server environment are basically being non-compliant, which means that they need to either upgrade their license or refresh their whole server infrastructure, or parts of it at least. So just a shout out to that. So I can see you've got it. And no, we have a question in regards to the ROK license, if it includes software assurance. It does not. ROK license does not include software assurance. Software assurance is a volume license and needs to be purchased as an add-on. So if nothing else, I will just leave a couple of minutes for you to ask any questions. And if that's all, then I will say thank you for listening and tuning in, and hope to talk to you soon. Have a good day.
Hi Lars, we have one question. Does ROK include SA?
Oh yeah, but I just answered that, but I can it didn't come close. No, it does not. As I said before, ROK is software assurance is a volume license, and it is an add-on license. So you need to purchase that either point of sale or within 90 days of purchasing the ROK license.